Brent and Ryan in the morning. Well, good morning. I'm Brent.
And I'm Ryan.
And this is Brent and Ryan in the morning. We're now into week 2 of our immersed Bible reading plan, and we're still in Luke. He's still got a lot more he's got to say. But you know, one of the questions I had as I started this week, and I think maybe some of our people out there, folks that are reading on with us, might question this, is why? Why would we read the Bible? What is the value in waking up or finding some time during the day to actually pick this book up and read through it?
Salvation. Your salvation depends on it.
I don't think so.
I'm kidding.
I'm kidding.
So. Here, as pastors, we read lots of research, and Lifeway recently did a study, and they researched all these people who say that they're followers of Jesus, and at the end of their research, they said the number one predictor of if you're actually growing in your faith is, are you actually reading the Bible?
Right.
So I'm not saying that you can't grow if you don't read the Bible, but if you said in 2019, I want to take a step closer to Jesus, then the most important activity you can do is to get into God's Word and read this. And that's why we created this whole thing. And we're doing these silly videos, is to get you engaged in reading the Bible.
And primarily, that's not just reading for reading's sake. It's because to grow, we become more like Jesus. And how do we find out who he was and what he was like? It's by reading all about him. And certainly in this last few days reading, Luke has done an incredible job of cramming a lot of things into a short period to tell us exactly what Jesus was about.
Absolutely. In this section of Luke, we could call it the story time with Jesus section.
That's right.
Because he gets so much into what we call parables. And they're just, rather than him telling them, this is what you should think and this is how you should believe, he tells them a story to try to drive the point home. It's really kind of like a mom reading a bedtime story to her children.
And children were very important also in the sections that we've read this week as well, because he repeatedly talks about having a childlike faith and let the little children come to me. And you know, as I was reading this week, you know, I really thought about that as it's probably not a problem for us, because that's probably why we're pastors, because childlike things we're pretty childish, right?
Childlike, not childish.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah,
close.
But for so many people today, the intellectual superiority that we feel like we have, and we want to make things a lot more complicated than they are. And Jesus is very clearly coming and just saying to us, look, you kind of have to lay some of that aside, because it takes the faith of a child in order to come to know him for who he really is.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And one of the things, because it takes this faith of a child, that's why the parables become so important. There's actually one verse that says, he tells these stories in parables so that the clever, the wise, the people who think they're so proud in their own wisdom, they miss it. Yeah. And here's the Messiah, God come in flesh, and they don't see it at all. And instead it's the lowly, like we've talked about before.
And even as we'll read later on down the road, the Apostle Paul will come back to this idea when he's talking about the cross. And he actually says the cross is foolishness to those who don't believe. And it even becomes a stumbling block to people. And I think we struggle with that because it's so easy, but it's very difficult to comprehend. I mean, it's difficult to get beyond our own intellect sometimes to really understand the faith that's required to come to Jesus.
Because we think we're so smart.
We think we've got it all figured out. That's exactly right. You know, as I was reading Ryan, one of the things I noticed is that he did tell a lot of parables. But it wasn't just parables. Luke does a really incredible job of picking up just some of the interesting day-to-day stories of Jesus going to somebody's house and hanging out there. And one of the stories that, you know, I have to say I really related to one of the characters in was the story of Mary and Martha, where Jesus goes to the house. And here you have Mary, who is in the living room with Jesus, and she's just sitting there, and she's doting on Jesus. And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
And then you go to the kitchen, and what do you find? You find Martha.
Martha, slaving away, making the meal,
making sure it gets done.
Ready. Right.
Yeah.
There's no gathering around a meal without Martha.
Right.
And who gets blamed?
And who gets called out?
Martha.
Well, and I guess Martha has herself to blame, because she's like, tell her to get in here and work. And
Yeah.
there is an
But I get
important
it.
point there.
How are they going to know where to park without a guy with cones directing
right.
traffic? How's the light show going to
That's
get
right. Those
set
lights
up
don't
without...
set up themselves, right?
Sorry.
That's
sorry.
right. Well,
I'm still feeling.
I don't think Luke wrote about celebration of lights, but if he had been around today, I'm confident he would have.
Is epic.
Well, there's episode number 3.
Absolutely.
3 down. I'm hoping by the time we do this again, my voice is a little better.
Hopefully.
You know, it is still winter in Iowa. But hey, how's your reading plan going? I hope that these videos are encouraging, and I hope that you'll come back and check it out again later this week as we'll post episode 4. And we come back for another exciting edition of
Brent and Ryan in the morning.
See you guys.